So what we're going to be doing now is creating the main menu. So in order to create the main menu, we need a new scene. So head on over to the top left, File, New Scene, and let's go ahead and save this by hitting Control S or Command S if you're on a Mac. Select your Galaxy Shooter folder, your scenes, and call this Main Menu. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to build a menu that's going to allow you to select between your single player and your co-op mode. Now to make this look awesome, we're going to go ahead and head on over to the Asset Store, and we're going to find some main menu elements that we can use. Now if you type in Unity Technologies, they actually provide some pretty good assets that we can use to build a main menu. So type in Unity Technologies and just go ahead and click on their actual user profile so you can see all their assets. And what I'm looking for is the Unity Samples UI. So if you actually type in up here, Unity Samples, you'll see here it's the first one that pops up. Unity Samples UI, go ahead and download this, accept the licensing agreement, and go ahead and import this into your project. There's a lot of things in here that we're not going to be using, but for the most part, we may be keeping it. So it's going to go ahead and clutter up your project. Go ahead and import. And the only thing I'm interested in are the sprites, honestly. We're going to delete everything else. So go ahead and let this import. I'll see you when it's finished. Okay, now that that's finished importing, let's go ahead and clean up our project. So we're not going to be doing anything with the animation. So delete that animation folder that it gave you. Delete the fonts folder that it gave you. Delete the materials folder that it gave you. Delete the models folder that it gave you. The prefabs folder you can delete as well. The scenes folder you can delete as well. The scripts you can delete. Keep the textures and sprites. Let's take a look in here. Is there anything that we actually want from here? Alright, you can delete the decoration. Lit UI. We don't need any of this. Go ahead and remove that. Rounded UI. We don't need any of this. Delete that. Render texture, we do not need. Delete it. And now we have the SF, I imagine it stands for Sci-Fi UI. And if we hop in here, you'll see we have our background. And we have some buttons, generic, title, and SF window. Okay. So let's go ahead and see if we can play around with this and make some cool little buttons. Alrighty, so here's what we're going to do. We have these textures and sprites. Go ahead and rename this folder to Main Menu. Inside your Galaxy Shooter, under your Sprites folder, go ahead and drag your main menu in here. There we go. Now we have a main menu folder with all of our UI sprites that we're going to be using. Okay, so let's set this up. The first thing we need to do is need to create a UI canvas by right-clicking in the hierarchy, go to UI, and create a canvas. The next thing we're going to want to do is right-click your canvas, UI, and create a panel. This panel is going to hold all the elements related to our main menu. So let's call this Main Menu Panel. You'll see it has this weird transparent tint over it. Go ahead and remove the image component to get rid of that on the main menu panel. The next thing we want to do is right-click your main menu panel and let's add an image. The image texture we're going to be using is this SF background. So drag it from your project view into the sprite. You'll see we get this. You can go ahead now and scale this up. The image is 1024 by 819. So the easiest thing you can do actually is select the anchor, choose the bottom right one, which will stretch to all corners, and then set the left to 0, the top to 0, the right to 0, and the bottom to 0. And you'll see here it fits our screen. Now, because it's stretched, that means that we can also change the scale of our game and it will map. Pretty cool, right? So go ahead and rename this image to background. So we're going to call this background. And the next thing we want to do is let's go ahead and get some buttons in here. So we have a title. And I think what we're going to use for our title, we might actually be able to use our title from the main game itself. So let's go ahead and create another image here. So right click main menu panel, go to UI, add an image, and call this title. And for the sprite, select it and call it main menu. Alright, that's going to add the main menu game object or image. And let's go ahead and scale this up to about 212. So 212 on the X or the width and 212 on the height. And we'll keep that centered. Okay, I think that actually looks pretty good. I'm really happy with this. You might be able to increase this up a bit. You can do whatever you'd like, honestly. I'll go ahead and center it here, I suppose. And maybe a little bit bigger. So the actual image is 512 by 512, which we may be able to use. Let's see here. You know what? This actually works okay. I'm okay with this. So here we go. We have our Galaxy Shooter, and we have our background. So we have our background and our title. Now let's go ahead and get some buttons in here. So right-click the main menu panel and go to UI and button. Call this single player. So single player button. And let's go ahead and change the text of it to say single player. And the next thing I want to do is go ahead and position this. I'd say, let's go ahead and zoom in on it here for a minute. To zoom in on it, by the way, you just select it in the hierarchy, move your mouse into the scene view, and select the F key, and that will focus in on it. Let's go ahead and position it over here. So single player, I want to change the UI sprite to be one of the buttons that we have from the Sci-Fi pack. So drag this SF button into the UI sprite, and you'll see it sort of looks like that. Now what's cool about this is we can now give it a tint. So what we can actually do is change the color of this, and let's give it like a sort of maybe, how's a red tint look? No, that looks horrible. You can go ahead and give it a border tint like maybe this blue, or what you can also do is actually use this color picker, and you can get the exact blue. So now it kind of matches the background. The next thing you need to do though is you need to upgrade your text. So select the text, change the color to probably white. And the next thing I want to do is you have single player and then duplicate it, and now we have co-op mode. So here we have co-op button. Change the text to say co-op. Okay, and let's go ahead and move this so that it's an equal length apart. All right, I think that looks pretty good. So here you have your Galaxy Shooter, you have your single player, your co-op modes. And let's see here. What else do we want to do here? What happens when we highlight it? So for instance, we have this button component here. This button component allows you to determine how this button interacts when you highlight over it, what happens when you click it, what happens when it's disabled. So here, oh, check that out. There's a color multiplier. Oh, well, that changes everything. I'm going to go ahead and set my color multiplier to about 2.22 on each one. And that really brings it out. I like that. 2.22. There we go. That's pretty cool. I'm very happy with that. And the next thing I want to do here is we have our single player button. What happens when I highlight this in game? So if I run the game right now, you'll see here that nothing happens when I highlight it. However, that's what these buttons are for. So the highlight color, I can go ahead and make this highlight color maybe like a solid red, right? So let's go ahead and run the game and watch what happens when I highlight over it. You'll see here, turns into a red, so that I know that there's feedback from the user saying, hey, you're highlighting this. And then watch what happens when I click this button. You'll see there's feedback as well, and I can change what happens there. I can change the pressed color value. So I'm actually okay with the pressed color value. It clearly notifies me that I'm clicking it. Now, what I don't like though is the highlighted color for that. So here it's red. Let's go ahead and make that something we do like. Maybe let's try this blue. How's that look? Oh, that's actually pretty cool. It's a little subtle, but I know I'm highlighting it, and then I get a clear feedback there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, but please customize this to your liking. So I'm going to go ahead and copy the button component here, and I want the values to be the same for the co-op. So I'm just going to right-click the button here, and I'm going to paste component values, and it's going to overwrite those values. Okay, so the next thing though is we need to change this back. So the single target graphic needs to be the co-op button graphic when you do that. Okay, so here's our main menu. I think it looks really awesome. In the next video, we're going to look at syncing up these buttons to actually control which scene to load. I'll see you guys then.